Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Haribo Nayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivra Jaga Acharya Ashotatar Shtata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivra Jaga Acharya Ashtoter Tatta Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki, Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki, Shri Chaitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Ganga Mai ki, Jamuna Mai ki, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani ki, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki, Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrita Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Madhurayet Nastapreshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Babati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to have you back, Jai Govinda Prabhu. Also nice to see you, Indupati Prabhu. I haven't seen you in a while. I was thinking about texting you. And I saw you on the road while I was chanting japa, and I thought, okay, he's alive at least. So, were you sick?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Glad you're back now, though. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 43. Song sung by Lord Shiva. Shakti Traya Samaitaya Miruse Hankritatmane Chita Akuti Rupaya Namo Vacho Vibhutaye Shakti Traya Sametaya Mirushe Hankritatmane Chita Akuti Rupaya Namo Vacho Vibhutaye Shakti Traya Sametaya Mirushe Hankritatmane Chita Akuti Rupaya Namo Vacho Vibhutaye Shakti Traya Sametaya Mirushe Hankritatmane Chita Akuti Rupaya
Namo Vacho
Shakti Traya Sametaya Mirushe Hankritatmane Chita Akuti Rupaya Namo Vacho Vibhutaye
Shakti Traya Sametaya
Shakti Traya Sametaya Mirushe Hankritatmane Chita Akuti Rupaya Namo Vacho Vibhutaye
Satyakaya Sametaya
Shakti Traya Sametaya Miruse Ankritatmane Cheta Akuti Rupaya Namo Vacho Vibhutaye Shakti Traya Sametaya Mirushe Hankritatmane Cheta Akuti Rupaya Namo Vacho Vibhutaye Shakti Traya Sametaya Mirushe Hankritatmane Cheta Akuti Rupaya Namo Vacho Vibhutaye. Okay, word for word. Shakti Traya. Three kinds of energies. Sametaya. Unto the reservoir. Mirushe. Unto Rudra. Ahankritatmane. The source of egotism. Cheta. Knowledge. Akuti. Eagerness to work. Rupaya. Under the form of. Namaha. My obeisances. Vachaha. Under the sound. Vibhutaye. Under the different types of opulences. Translation. Srila Prabhupada. My dear Lord, you are the supreme controller of the worker, sense activities, and results of sense activities, karma. Therefore, you are the supreme controller of the body, mind, and senses. You are also the supreme controller of egotism, known as Rudra. You are the source of knowledge and the activities of the Vedic injunctions. Purport. Everyone acts under the direction of the ego. Therefore, Lord Shiva is trying to purify false egotism through the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since Lord Shiva, or Rudra, is himself the controller of egotism, he indirectly wants to be purified by the mercy of the Lord so that his real egotism can be awakened. Of course, Lord Rudra is always spiritually awake, but for our benefit, he is praying in this way. For the impersonalist, pure egotism is aham brahmasmi. I am not this body, I am a spirit soul. But in its actual position, the spirit soul has devotional activities to perform. Therefore, Lord Shiva prays to be engaged both in mind and in action in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord according to the direction of the Vedas. This is the process for purifying false egotism. Chaitaha means knowledge. Without perfect knowledge, one cannot act perfectly. The real source of knowledge is vachaha, or sound vibration, given by Vedic instructions. Here the word vachaha, or vibration, means the Vedic vibration. The origin of creation is sound vibration, and if the sound vibration is clear and purified, perfect knowledge and perfect activities actually become manifest. This is enacted by the chanting of the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Thus, Lord Shiva is praying again and again for the purification of the body, mind, activities through the purification of knowledge and action under the pure directions of the Vedas. Lord Shiva prays to the Supreme Personality of Godhead so that his mind, senses, and words will all turn toward devotional activities only. Jai. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagadatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopaka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vishubhanu Shuti Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Nashesha Kalesha Nashaya Parmananda Daine Vancha Kalpatarabhishta Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtita Deshatari. Namaste Jivanandaya Dasa Vamacharine Prabhupada Vallabhaya Singhasvilavanurine Agyana Dvanta Gamanam Pashtucha Paditatmanam Jnana Gurute Achita Harine Chakshashe Namaha. Hare Krishna. So, speaking of the false ego, egotism, and how Lord Shiva is the master of egotism, and he's praying to be purified of this egotism. And it's interesting, Prabhupada makes the point that this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the perfection of vacha, of this Vedic sound vibration. That word vacha is where the word vocabulary comes from. It's that Sanskrit word vocabulary. It's coming from that, vacha. There's the verse, very famous verse, that has the word vacha in it. That's another one. Vacho vegam, anasakrota vegam, jiva vegam, udaprasta vegam, etan vegam, yovashaheta dira, sarvamapi mam prativim sashashyat. Vacho vegam means the urge to speak. We should
so vachas.
Yeah. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Nayad vachaschit trambanam harayasho jagat pavritam praganita karichit tadvayasam tirdamushanti manasa shrinvantiga tadvayasam tirdamushanti manasa nayatra hamsa niramat yushikshaya navachaschitram paramharayasho. Those words that don't describe the personality of Godhead, which purify the entire universe, are likened by saintly persons to be places of pilgrimage for the crows. The all-perfect persons who are residents of the transcendental abode do not delight in such topics. So that's out of that verse. It's a nice verse. So this ego, the Lord Shiva is saying, you are the supreme controller of the worker, sense activities, and results of sense activities. Therefore, you are the controller of the body, mind, and senses. So this brings us to this conclusion, once again, that we need to all come to in devotional service, that we're not the doer. Prakriti kriyamanani guna karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma kartahamiti manyate. You hear this word ahankara, which we hear it here. Hankritatmane, this false ego, ahankara. So ahankara is the false ego. Krishna is saying prakriti kriyamanani guna karmanis ahankara vimudatma kartahamiti manyate. That the living entity bewildered by ahankar, bewildered by false ego, he thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality performed by the three modes of material nature. That's one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita. That's actually the very first verse I ever memorized. Ahankara vimudatma kartahamiti manyate. So what is this saying? Krishna is saying that bewildered by false ego, we think ourselves the doer of activities that are in actuality performed by false ego. So this is our big challenge in overcoming anarthas, is we think we're the doer. The yoga system is divided into different categories, beginning with sinful life, malecha life, and then above that is the varnashram dharma, which is the beginning of kind of spiritual life, and that starts the process of karma kanda. One is living according to the Vedas, worshiping the demigods and so forth to obtain their desires. And then from that point on, one develops a higher consciousness and then begins to engage in karma yoga. Karma yoga. What is karma yoga? offering the fruits of our activities to the Lord. Or it could mean doing things in such a way to please the Lord to get fruits. That's called Sakam Karma Yoga. There's two types of Karma Yoga. There's Sakam Karma Yoga and there's Nishkam Karma Yoga. So Sakam Karma Yoga means, yes, I'm working for the Lord and I'm enjoying the fruits. And Nishkam Karma Yoga means I'm not attached to the fruits. And then there's a higher level of Nishkam Karma Yoga. Not only am I not attached to the fruits, I'm not attached to being the doer. I'm not thinking I'm the doer of these activities. This is a very big challenge for us in our devotional service, mainly because we begin to think we're the doer of activities and we get puffed up. And also because we begin to think that we're the doer of activities that degrade us. We start to think, oh, I'm so fallen. Of course, we should feel ourselves fallen, but not in the way that I'm doing so many horrible things. We're fallen because we've forgotten Krishna. This is our actual fallen position. There's nothing really you can do that you haven't done. We've been killers, we've been Hitlers, we've been all of that stuff in our past lives. We've been here for millions and millions of births. We've been tyrannical. We've been to the lower species. We've been to the hellish planets. It could be assumed, since we've been here since time immemorial. So it's not the things that we think we've done, it's the idea or the sense that we've forgotten Krishna. Because Krishna says, Upadrasta numantascha bharta bhokta maheshvara, that he's the overseer and the permitter, the master and enjoyer of all activities. So what does that mean, that he's the overseer and he's the permitter? It means that you have a desire. How do you fulfill that desire? Generally, people think that I'm going to go out and fulfill my own desires. I have some sinful desire and I'm going to go fulfill it. And therefore, I did that. I had illicit sex. I did this, I did that. And therefore, we think, oh, no, I'm so fallen, I'm going to suffer. And we get into this state where we're just perpetually identifying with the body, which is illusion. The first step of illusion is to perpetually identify with this body. We feel ourselves lower than the straw in the street. Trinadapi sunichena, tareva sahishnuna, manena madanena, kirtanesvara. Yes, we feel ourselves lower than the straw in the street. But we should understand that that reason behind that is because we've left Krishna by our own desire. We have the ability to desire. So Krishna fulfills those desires. How does he fulfill those desires? How is Krishna fulfilling our desires? Paramatmeti chapyukto dehismin purusha paraha. Krishna is in our heart. He's acting as the super soul. And the super soul is the actual controller of everything. He's the actual doer of everything. Everything is being done by the super soul, according to one's desire. If I desire to move my hand, Krishna is moving my hand for me. Because we're hearing right here, Krishna is the supreme controller of the worker, the sense activities, and the results of sense activities. So what part do we play? We play the part of the desirer. So we play the part of the desirer. What is our desire? So what are we doing in Bhakti Yoga at our stage? We're cultivating a consciousness to desire Krishna. Krishna says in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the ultimate instruction. Just fix your mind upon me. And if you can't do that, follow the rules and regulations of devotional service and develop a desire to attain me. So the process of sadhana bhakti or vaidhi bhakti is developing a desire to obtain Krishna. So we're hearing, we're chanting, we're taking prasad, we're seeing the deities, we're regulating our life, we're curbing our sinful desires so that we can develop a desire to just want Krishna. And when we just want Krishna enough, when the chanting of Hare Krishna becomes sincere enough, Krishna will engage us in his devotional service. This is the process. So you're not the doer. We generally think we're the doer of so many activities. And therefore, if we think we're the doer, if we accept ourselves as this body and as the performer of activities, that means we have to accept the consequences, the results of the activities. So this is the idea of karma. We're under the impression that I'm this body, I perform an action, therefore I have to get some consequence. Sometimes you even see devotees, they're very scared of sinful reactions, which is a symptom of illusion. Prabhupada says a liberated person is never afraid of sinful reaction. And we see that in examples of who? Give me an example of someone who wasn't scared of any sinful reaction. The gopis, yes. When they were asked to give Krishna the dust of their lotus feet. Yes. I'm thinking of someone in the Bhagavatam.
Judge Bharat, he just lay upon the ground and be no attachment to any of his activities, and then he was still resolute in his thoughts of the Lord. Is that right?
Yeah, Judge Bharat was certainly a liberated person who was not fearful of any sinful reactions. But there's a good example of that in the case of specifically Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit, what did he do? He was cursed. I curse you to die by the snake bird, dragon. I curse you to be killed by the snake bird. And so what did he do? He could have counteracted the curse, but what did he do? He just continued on with his bhajan. He decided, I'm going to hear the Bhagavatam for 7 days until I leave this body. Another example, one of my favorite examples I use very often is Vritrasura. He was King Chitraketu, the great devotee of the Lord, whom when flying in his celestial airplane, saw that Lord Shiva was giving a Bhagavatam class with Parvati sitting on his lap. And he snickered, thinking himself to be slightly more sense-controlled than Lord Shiva. Of course, Lord Shiva was not offended, but Parvati was greatly offended and therefore cursed him to become a demon. And in his next life, he had to become the demon Vritrasura. So what did he do? He wasn't scared. He actually apologized to Parvati and accepted the curse. He had no fear of sinful reaction. Why? Because he's not the doer and because he's not the body. Sinful reactions only happen to the body. Let us not forget Krishna, my dear Lord. My dear Lord, let me never forget you. Do whatever you will to me. I'll take whatever consequences that befall me. But don't let me forget you. That's the consciousness of a sadhu. That is the consciousness of a sadhu. Apichet siddharacharo bhajate mamananyabhak. Sadhu areva samantavyaha samyag yavashito saha. Even if one is sudarachar, even if one is the most abominable, if he has bhajate mamananyabhak, he's never going to forget Krishna. He's never going to lose his attraction to Krishna. He's never going to move from his desire to serve Krishna. Krishna says, Sadhu areva samantavyaha. I consider him a sadhu. Why? Samyag yavashito saha. Because he's properly fixed in his determination. So we need determination. So we're not the doers. And so a pure devotee doesn't lament over things that happen. Mistakes may be made. Slip-ups may happen. But a pure devotee doesn't lament over that. It does feel remorse. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the fire of remorse burns up the sinful reactions for a devotee. If a devotee makes a mistake, then the remorse from that mistake actually purifies the devotee. Because he doesn't want to offend Krishna. We don't try to feel remorse or do atonement because we want to avoid sinful activities. We want to avoid sinful reaction.
May I ask the difference between is remorse internal or lamentation and external representation of false remorse? It's not a constitutional position. I'm confused.
Lamentation is a type of illusion, and remorse is a genuine feeling of wanting to correct ourselves with the Lord. Lamentation means material. I've lost someone, I've lost something. I'm lamenting my own sinful reactions, and remorse is, I'm sorry to Krishna. There's a huge difference there. A materialistic devotee or materialistic person is always thinking, oh God, reactions are coming. I'm really going to get it. And the pure devotee is thinking, Krishna, give me whatever you will. Give me whatever I deserve. I'm so, so sorry, Krishna. I'm so sorry. Please don't ever leave me. Please don't ever let me forget you. There's a big difference there. Pure devotee thinks, let me take whatever reaction I get, and whatever reaction happens, he thinks I deserve a lot worse. But he remains remorseful, regretful of his activities because he doesn't want to offend Krishna. We forgot Krishna, we left Krishna. This is the lamentation of a devotee. Let me resurrect my relationship with Krishna. Materialist is thinking, oh dear Lord, please don't hit me as hard as I deserve. Why me? There's a difference. So we're not the doers. When we think ourselves the doer, we have to accept the results of such activities. But for a devotee, he becomes fixed in Krishna consciousness. So sometimes things may happen that are very, very bewildering for a devotee in their lives. They might find themselves in circumstances where it is not so clear what is the right thing to do. So they serve Krishna. They act in such a way to do what they think will please Krishna, as close to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra as possible. And the result may be negative. The result may be not so nice. I mean, take Arjuna, for example. Arjuna was doing his devotional service and in fighting. What was the result of that fighting for him? He lost all of his children. He lost half of his whole family. 100 cousin brothers, they all died. All of the children were lost. So, except for, of course, except for one, except for Parikshit. Parikshit was the grandson, actually. All the children were lost, but Uttara lived, and she had her son Parikshit. So all of the children were gone. Grandfather Bhishma is gone. Dronacharya is gone. This is kind of a sad situation from one perspective. And from the materialistic point of view, Arjuna is the cause. But he was doing it for Krishna, under Krishna's instruction. There's no reaction. So we're not in control of the reaction or the result of our activities. If you're attached to the result, you're always going to be miserable. Therefore, we're just doing our duty. And we don't take the credit. Materialists are always taking the credit. The false ego is saying, I'm so good at this, I'm so good at that. I'm so enthusiastic, I'm so this, I'm so that. Materialistic consciousness. And the devotees knows that actually the materialist is under control of the modes of nature. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma karta miti manyate. Bewildered by false ego, he thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality performed by the modes of nature. The modes of nature are acting and he's thinking I'm doing. He's thinking I'm so great. The modes of nature are acting. The devotee does something, he thinks, I'm not the doer. Who's the doer for the devotee? Because the devotees aren't under the modes of material nature, right? So, for the devotee, for the materialist, the external energy is the doer. And for the devotee, Krishna is the doer. Guru and Krishna is the doer. we do something great, who do we give the credit to? Krishna. We give the credit to Krishna immediately. So don't start thinking that, oh, I am such a nice devotee. I lead such nice kirtan. I have such nice sadhana. No, Krishna is the doer. Krishna is empowering you to do that service. Famous example is Arjun. Arjun defeated the entire Kaurava army twice. And then when Krishna left the planet, he was defeated by a band of cowherders. My powers are gone, Krishna. There's that whole part of the Bhagavatam, first canto, where Arjuna says, all my prowess is gone. Arjuna, who was fought with Lord Shiva, he was defeated by a bunch of cowherd men who were actually Krishna, but still, everything's Krishna, right? So the idea is that we're not. So who are we? What is the actual position of a living entity? How do we actually understand ourselves? It's so important to really, really absorb this philosophy of not being the doer. This is what karma yoga is, and karma yoga and bhakti yoga are very closely related. It's so important to understand that when I act, or when I think I'm acting, it's actually the modes of nature. So what is it? What is our responsibility in this whole thing? Someone have an answer?
You're learning to not just be the desirer for Krishna to act on and be the doer, but also to desire and to serve Krishna.
Exactly.
Desire then can be fulfilled by Krishna.
Exactly. Exactly. Our responsibility is to remember Krishna. Focus on Krishna. Life's hard. Sorry to tell you that. Sorry to burst your bubble. Life is hard. But we simply remember Krishna. Matra sparshasta kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkada agamayo payo. Let me sing it. Agamay payo na tatams nityas tam tatikshava bharataha. Can't ever say that without having a snicker now. That verses. But yeah, Krishna is giving us that the very second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. There's so much things we have to learn. You know, first thing he says, you're not this body. You've always existed. You always will exist. And he says, you have to tolerate happiness and distress are like the appearance and the disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. One should tolerate them. Then he says, Yamina vyatayante te purusham purushashava samadukam sukham dhiram samritat vayakalpate. That a person who remains the same in happiness and distress and is steady in both, he becomes eligible for liberation. So why is it? What is that steadiness? That steadiness is I don't forget to hear and chant. Our dearly beloved Jagannath Prabhu is a solid example of a person who, no matter what is going on, no matter what is happening, he just hearing and chanting and remains the same in both. This is the consciousness. And I'm just going to remain focused on my remembering Krishna. When everything is hard, I remember Krishna. When everything is good, I remember Krishna. I remain the same in both. So Krishna says that even if one is considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, if he's situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, he can cross over the ocean of nescience. So do you understand transcendental knowledge? What is this transcendental knowledge? It means really understanding you're not this body. Really understanding that I'm not this body. Situated in that boat means that I'm not the doer. I'm not the results of my activities. Whatever happens, it's not even happening to me. It's just happening to my body. So Real transcendental knowledge means not just knowing you're not this body, Prabhupada says here, but understanding the devotional activities. What are the devotional activities? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. These are the processes. So we can always be remembering Krishna throughout all the hard things, throughout all the good things. Just remember Krishna. This is the essence. And we have to engage in pure devotional service to really realize this. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Haitukam. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha. By engaging in Bhakti Yoga to Vasudev, to Bhagavan Vasudev, Krishna, Janayat Yashu Vairagyam. From that is born Vairagya, detachment, and Jnanam, knowledge. If you just engage in devotional service properly, if you can understand how to do this thing properly, chant Hare Krishna properly, and then do devotional service properly, Jnanam Chayada Haitukam, you get causeless knowledge. What is that causeless knowledge? You understand I'm not this body. Because you're properly situated in your constitutional position as the servant of the Lord. The problem is we want to think we're the doer. That's self-interest that destroys our devotional service. We want to think, oh, I want to be the best devotee. I want to be this. I want to be that. I have my own plan. We're not accepting Krishna's plan. And therefore, our old friend comes to get us. Matsarya. Envy. Everything in this world is based on envy. Matsarya. Means I'm unhappy with the way things are. Didn't want it to be this way. So I'm dissatisfied all the time, always dissatisfied because I'm envious of Krishna. That's why you're always dissatisfied. Because I'm envious of Krishna. But wait, you're not this body. You can't be envious of Krishna. You're a pure devotee. And who you really are is, of course. But we're under this impression. We have this desire to make things the way we want them. We have our own motive. So pure devotee, he sees Krishna's mission only. It's that surrender. One of those 6 symptoms of surrender is to not have the Lord's interest in mind, to have another interest separate from the interest of the Lord. If I have the Lord's interest in mind and I see you doing great service for the Lord, how should that make me feel? Happy. Ecstatic. Because all I see is, oh, you're pleasing my Krishna. Not the doer. Krishna is the doer of everything. But we're bewildered by the bodily consciousness. So we think, oh, I should be the doer. I should be doing that. I should be getting the credit for that. Aren't I getting recognized? We have our own self-interest takes over. Then it can warp our minds. If we don't get the hang of it, it'll just warp us until next thing you know, we're totally just burned out. All from thinking we're the doer. That's why it takes a lot of steadiness and a lot of strength in spiritual life. You have to be fixed in knowledge. And you can do that by sharpening your intelligence by good sadhana. Good sadhana sharpens our intelligence. We have good sadhana, our intelligence is sharp, and we can discern between what is ego and what is bhakti. And so who are we, when we really analyze it, Krishna is the life of all beings. I'm the life of all that lives, Krishna says. So the life of all that lives We want to identify with so many things, our activities, clothes, our hair, our families, our religions. But when you see that the symptoms of life, on this planet especially, you can see, they're there in all things. The trees are breathing, the plants are breathing, the bugs are breathing, the lungs are working, the air is moving around, the functions of life are happening. Life is in everything, everything alive. And who is the source of that life? Who's the life of all that lives? Krishna. So we're not the super soul, but we identify as part and parcel of the super soul. That's the proper understanding. That's the deepest level we can get. We're part and parcel of the super soul. And so rather than judge someone for even all the things, even the things they do, rather I see them as life. They're life. Everything is alive. And that's the life in that thing. That is Krishna. And therefore, Krishna says in the 11th canto, one should offer dandavat pranams to every living entity. One should offer dandavat pranams to every living entity. Krishna says that in the 11th canto. So you see that there's life in everything. Even your worst enemy, still the life force is there. Beyond all that, we're the same. We're both part and parcel of Krishna. And so if you have that consciousness, you become very peaceful. Very, very peaceful. And so you become transcendentally calm and peaceful and happy. Brahmabhuta prasanatma nisochati nakankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu. This is the real understanding right here. It's so clear in this verse. How do you want to become nice pure devotee? Brahmabhuta prasanatma. Situated on that transcendental platform, realizing you're not this body, the Atma becomes prasan, becomes joyful. Prasanatma. Nisochati nakankshati, he doesn't lament, he doesn't desire. And samasarveshu bhuteshu, he sees all living entities as equals. Why? Because he sees that the life in you and the life in me is the same. We want to see differences. This is the mind. It wants to see differences and cut things apart. But the spiritual mind, the mind that's enlightened, sees life. I was chanting my japa this morning, actually, and this kind of just hit me really hard. So I was chanting, and I was early, 4:30. I was just walking up Blackledge, chanting, and in the darkness, I see some guy splayed out in the middle of the road naturally. And, it's pitch black, really dark street, Blackledge, and, first thing that kind of hits you is like, oh, some guy, and like some fear, kind of goes across you. Then it just came to me like, all the homie guy fried out on, drugs, actually he's breathing, his heart is beating just like me. And the life force is there. So we want to identify with all of this. We even want to identify with our service, everything. We want to identify with all of this rather than just being the loving servant of God. We want to identify with all these things. I'm a brahmachari, I'm a this, I'm a that, all these external identifications. And we create a character and we live in our avatar world, in our matrix world. We have our matrix avatar, even as a so-called religious person. But actually, all of that at the time of death is going to die. We can't be attached to any of it. When you begin to identify as life, as a jiva, as part and parcel of Krishna, as part of the life of all that lives, as a part of Krishna, then you realize that I am eternal. The essence of who I am is in you. And as long as life exists, and of course the Vedic definition of life is much bigger. The sun is alive, the earth is alive, the universe is itself alive. As long as life and consciousness exist, I do exist. Of course, we have a deeper understanding that I'm also an individual. The essence of the love I offer will always exist. The love I have to give, that's who I am. That's who you are too. You are the love you have to give to Krishna. So I like this statement here that Shiva is praying again and again for the purification of body and mind and activities, the purification of knowledge and action under pure directions of the Vedas. Lord Shiva prays to the personality of Godhead so that his mind, senses, and words will turn toward devotional activities only. And what is that prayer? How do we pray like that? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What does the Hare Krishna Mahamantra mean? O Lord, O energy of the Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. O Radha, O Krishna, please engage me in your service. So we're cultivating that desire. And if something happens, what can be done? We're not the body, we're not the doer. You fall down, you stay down, it's bad. You get back up, there's no loss. So let us just remember Krishna. Let us become pure devotees. Let us just remember Krishna. Let us not fear this world. Let us realize that what Prabhupada said, we should fear Maya. We should fear Maya. But we don't fear what happens to us. We fear Maya. What is Maya? What is actual? Prabhupada defines Maya. What does it actually mean? What? Yeah, but Prabhupada gives another definition. Prabhupada gives a very clear definition of Maya.
But unless she's a servant of the Lord, who's keeping us in check.
Yeah, her personification is, but Durga. That's what Durga means. Prabhupada says Maya is the sense of separation from Krishna. So if you're feeling like, oh, I'm so far from Krishna, you're in Maya. Not in the sense that the gopis are feeling I'm so far from Krishna. They're in yoga Maya, very different. Because they're actually the closest to Krishna, even though they're feeling separation. But the limitation of feeling like, Krishna's not with me, Krishna's not in my heart, that's Maya. The sense of separation from Krishna. We can never be separated from Krishna. That's all I have to say. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your attention. Any questions? Comments? Criticism?
So when we serve Krishna, when we have the desire to serve Krishna, so when we have the desire to serve Krishna, and Krishna assists us in this through fulfilling, I understand that Maya stops being Maya where she harms you, and she then assists your service to Krishna with the illusion around you starts to assist your service. Is there any way that can be explained a little more?
Mahatmanastipam Bharta Daivim Prakritim Ashritaha Vajamyananya Manaso Gyata Bhutanavyayam. The great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. They're no longer under the control of Maya. They're under the control of Radha. Daivim Prakritim Ashritaham. They're taking shelter of the Daivim Prakritim, internal potency. And so this is Krishna's personal, internal desires taking place. Like we see there's so many miracles take place for Srila Prabhupada and his activities or the pure devotees, because it's all arranged by Krishna's internal potency. Because they understand Krishna as the supreme source of everything, inexhaustible and absolute. And how do we get there? How do we get that? Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantashtu javataha namashantastimam bhaktya nitya yukta upashyate. Satatam kirtayantamam, you're always chanting Krishna's glories. Yadantash Dridravrataha, you're endeavoring with great determination, Dridravrataha, with a vow to serve Krishna at all costs, under all circumstances, with unflinching determination to fulfill your mission to serve Krishna. Namashantastamam Bhakta, and you're always bowing down with Krishna with great devotion. Nitya Yukta Upasite, such a person is Nitya Yukta, he's never out of touch with Krishna. So, one is Mahamaya, she's covering us and flinging us around, and one is Yogamaya. She's assisting in our Leela with the Lord. Because we've taken shelter of her via Hare Radharani. Because we're devotees. Hare Krishna.